All right, good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, November 1st, 2023. Let's go ahead and do our review from yesterday and then get into the pre-market for this morning. I am in a little bit of a rush this morning because my road trip begins today. I'll be taking off from Minneapolis now, heading to New York. So the next 2 days, I probably will not be here. It's just not going to, logistically, it's going to be really hard for me to actually prepare for a pre-market and give you good, accurate levels and stuff. So probably not going to be here Thursday or Friday of this week. But let's go ahead and jump into this here. So let's look at our report from yesterday, our little Halloween report here. Actually want to maybe bring this in just a little bit. Take a look at it. And so what we say, daily bullish signal confirmed with some 4-hour bearish signals at the highs of this small bullish pop from the last week's lows. That's kind of what we were seeing on our signals. Finally getting confirmation of the potential signals we were seeing from last week's low. Additionally, in the overnight session, price pulled back and held above 50% of the previous day, and then pushed to get above VWAP as I type in the pre-market hours. And testing, pushing a few ticks above the previous daily high. These are all good clues for the bulls coming into yesterday, coming into Halloween morning. On the bullish side of things, a pullback is okay, but price should ideally stay above 50% of the previous day. Less ideal would be a deeper pullback to 4160 or the previous daily low and scaffolding around 4140 to 43. There's some trouble at the previous daily high with nice potential bearish signal, a clue for a pullback again today coming into the open. So let's look at what happened here on the charts. Go back to the open here yesterday, and well, what do you know? And actually, I think there was another thing I want to mention. There's some trouble at the previous daily high in the pre-market with a nice potential bearish signal on the hourly and 4-hour, a clue for a pullback coming into the open. So here's the test of the previous daily high in the pre-market here, where we got an hourly bearish signal, a 4-hour bearish signal. And then you can see as we were getting closer to the open, the market did start to retrace the little bounce it got in the overnight session. And then just when the market opened, what do you know? Here's our pullback. So we got the pullback. In fact, getting short off the back end of Hopel would have been a great trade to try, especially because you see the crossover here, right? We get the first crossover and then the second crossover. We get down through the Hopel and then literally 4, 5, 6, 7 tests. They hit Hopel and barely break it by maybe 1 or 2 ticks. And then you could have taken it short down into 50% of the previous day, or more importantly, that major swing level, or that support and resistance level we added at 71.5. So the low of yesterday, at least the New York hours, was basically the level we gave you here at 71.5. I think it bounced at 71.75. Okay, so again, there's some trouble with the previous daily high with a nice potential bearish signal. Looking for a clue for a pullback again today coming into the open. There's your pullback. And then what did I say here? Ideally, we should stay above 50% of the previous day. And so where did we bounce? About 2 points in front of the previous day, 50% of the previous day. And then you can see then we eventually got the breakout. Now yesterday, outside of getting short off the Hopel shortly after the market opened here, you probably got ripped up all inside of like 2 or 3 hours of chop. So we did get the pullback out of the open. That was the expectation. You did get a great opportunity to short the Hopel. And then the low of the day, again, was basically 71.5. I think it was 71.75. So one of our major levels, or one of our roadmap levels that we watch. And then from there, it was a total chop fest for, like I said, probably, I don't know, let's say just about from 9 a.m. Central to about noon Central for 3 hours. The market just chopped back and forth. So this was a total disaster. If you were trying to trade inside of here and trying to get into some of these levels, so they did hold in some instances. You got some follow through on these pullbacks to the VWAP, pullbacks to the 200 in some instances. But overall, it was a total mess in here. Okay, it just is the way it is. I can't control the market, but we did hold at the lows where I told you we want to hold for the bullish case. We got back up through the VWAP, and then the last couple hours of the day, we finally did get a breakout. So again, if you were trading for this little 3-hour block, it was probably really, really tough. But you did get an opportunity to get short out of the open there and get at least 5 to 10. It was just under a 10-point push if you got short off Hopel there. So, maybe you grabbed a 5, 6, 7-point winner there, and then your runners just didn't get the steam they needed, and you closed your trade out. But the rest of that morning, really, really tough. And then at the end of the day, you can see we finally got the continuation for the bulls. Because remember what I said, for the bullish case, we want to see them hold above 50% of the previous day. On the bullish side of things, pullback's okay, but price should ideally stay above 50% of the previous day. So we held 50% of the previous day, and then we got this it took a while, but eventually got the continuation for the expectation, which was a push for the bullish side of things. Because remember, on our higher time frames here, we had all the clues for a potential rotation back on the 27th as we started to hold above 50% of this potential signal candle on the daily, right? We see weekly and monthly potential down there as well. And then we had a really nice 4-hour bullish signal from down there. And by the way, this whole bounce was right off of the major swing we were watching here at 41.20 something, 27-ish right there. So the whole market sold off, came right into this major swing. If you go all the way back to where this came from, this major naked swing in the market from March of 2023, I guess, so March of this year, major rejection from there, and then we sell off for hundreds of points and come right to that, and now we're in a just about 100-point bounce so far from there. So pretty interesting stuff. We had 4-hour signals here, daily potential, weekly and monthly potential. We broke through the high of the signal candle here on, Monday of this week. That was our first clue, and now look at this nice follow through. Now look what's happening. The market is getting trouble right now. The high of yesterday in our overnight session kind of petering out right at 50% of last week. But anyway, pretty good stuff if you ask me once the market started to actually break out. So once we got through the high the day before, and notice what happened here, they came back into it, got another rejection, but on that pullback, ended up holding basically around the 200, and then we got this continuation. So, getting long off the pullback to the 200 could have been a play. Once you started to see the market break out, you should have been able to get in, not take on too much risk on that. I think it was just under a 2-point pullback through the 200, and then a test nearly to the tick here. And you could have probably rode this whole thing up with very limited risk. And then at the end of the day here, let's just go up. The high of the day was our next major swing. So if you zoom out and look, the low of the day, where the market, where was I here? The low of last week when we got the major bounce, and I should have went up to a higher time frame, was right down off this major swing from below. And then again, we got the bullish push going into Monday. And then yesterday, we push up. And what is the high of the day yesterday? The next major swing up here we had on our charts at 42.13 quarter. It went through it by a couple ticks there, but the high of yesterday was 42.15, just a couple ticks above that level, right? And this is not surprising stuff. These major naked swings are on our charts and marked for a reason, because we see these end up being the point of potential major rotations. You're not guaranteed anything, but these are typically very, very high probability areas for those rotations. So again, low of the day yesterday, high of the day, basically right into our roadmap levels. Although I do have to admit that for 3 hours, it was a total mess if you were trying to trade around some of these levels. So that's the review for yesterday. Not the prettiest market there for quite a while till we could get the breakout. And that brings us here into the overnight session where, again, we had some bearish stuff here on the hourly and the 4-hour at the end of yesterday. From the high of yesterday, we've gotten just about a 25-point pullback here. But notice where the bulls are defending. 1 tick in front of 50% of the day before again. It's like Groundhog's Day sometimes here, right? For day after day, we see the same type of stuff happening. So for multiple days, we've pushed, pulled back to the 50 of the day before, and then continued to the upside. And that's exactly what happened here today. Now, that doesn't mean that just because they held 50% of the day before and they're now pushing to try to push to new highs, it doesn't mean they're going to continue to do that, right? It could very well just drop right out or something, but once again, holding 50% of the previous day, testing up into and pushing through the high of yesterday at the moment. And on the pullback from the high of yesterday, we held the 200 nearly to the tick here for this little bounce that's happening as I speak, right? So not too bad. Again, the low of the overnight session was basically 50% yesterday. The high of the overnight session was basically the high of yesterday, except for this little peek through. And now we're pulling back and holding the 200 coming into the open. Doesn't mean we're guaranteed to push to the next contention area, but pretty good stuff that we would want to see happen for the bullish case this morning. So let's go ahead